They say you can't fight City Hall. I learned different at 11. First lesson, ink on paper beats blood on land, unless you've got fire and witnesses. February 1889, Montana Territory, before it was a state. I was Stella Mae Pritchard, and I was chopping creek ice before dawn because our cabin sat 2 miles from town, and nobody checked on the poor folks. The hatchet rang like rifle shots against the frozen water. My breath came in white clouds thick enough to cut. The metal handle burned my bare fingers. I'd outgrown my gloves that winter, and Mama couldn't afford new ones. I hauled the bucket uphill, slipped twice in the snow, refused to cry. Crying was for children. I wasn't a child anymore. By noon, I stood at the town well pump while Edgar Haskell cornered me. His fur collar coat smelled like money and pomade. The livestock auction crowd watched us the way folks watch a dog get kicked. Uncomfortable, but not enough to intervene. "Your mama's got 172 days on that claim, child," Edgar said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Needs 180, 8 days left." He smiled. It wasn't kind. "Unless she takes my charitable offer, $50 in a wagon to Deer Lodge Sanitarium." I said nothing. My jaw ached from clenching. His boot stepped forward, pinned my water bucket to the frozen ground. Mrs. Peabody whispered behind her hand, "Poor thing, but what can you do?" That night, Mama coughed blood into her pillow. I hid it under mine. Doc Tillman came 3 days later, his medical bag crackling with cold. The cabin smelled like wood smoke and sickness. Carbolic acid from the rags I boiled, damp wool from our clothes that never fully dried, the metallic tang of Mama's blood. He examined her handkerchief, held it to the window light, shook his head. 2 months, he said to me, not her, like she was already gone. Maybe 3, if she stays warm and still. Mama's breathing rattled like wind through the chinks in our walls. She'd lost weight I couldn't afford to feed back onto her. Her skin looked thin as Bible paper. "Can you help her?" I asked. "Child, I can make her comfortable. The rest is up to God and Constitution." He snapped his bag shut. "You got family? Anyone who can take you when... We'll manage." He studied me with sad eyes. "You're 11 years old." 11 and a half. At the door, he muttered to himself. I wasn't supposed to hear, but sound carries in winter silence. "Poor child will be orphaned by spring thaw." I stood at the window after he left, watched his wagon tracks fill with fresh snow, listened to Mama's wet cough, counted days in my head, 172 of 180. 8 days to make the homestead legal. 8 days before Edgar Haskell could file his claim. The land deed hung on the wall above our fireplace, yellowed paper in a cheap frame, my father's handwriting, Thomas Arthur Pritchard, 160 acres. Filed April 12th, 1887. He'd hammered every fence post, chinked every gap in these walls, died when a widowmaker branch fell during timberwork 2 winters back. This land was all I had left of him. That evening, desperation made me stupid. Our milk cow had gone dry. No hay meant no milk, and no milk meant Mama got weaker. I knew where hay was, across the creek in Josiah Brenner's barn. I'd heard his cattle lowing every night for months, a sound that traveled on cold air like a promise of plenty. I waited till dusk, took the empty feed sack. The creek was frozen solid enough to cross, my boots cracking through the top layer of ice with each step. The cold burned my lungs. Brenner's barn loomed dark against the purple sky. No lights in his main house. I slipped through the side door, and the smell hit me. Warm animals, dry hay, leather, the good scent of a place where things were cared for. I grabbed an armful of hay, stuffed it in my sack, then another. My hands shook, though not from cold. "That's theft." I froze. The voice came from behind me, low and rough like it wasn't used much. I turned. A man stood in the doorway, backlit by the last of the daylight, tall, maybe 40, dark hair that needed cutting. He didn't move, just watched me with eyes the color of creek water in winter. Josiah Brenner. I'd seen him in town exactly 3 times in 2 years. He bought supplies, paid cash, left. Folks said he'd lost his family and couldn't stand people anymore. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Our cow's dry. Mama's sick. I'll work it off, I swear. He held up one hand. Silence. He walked to the hay pile, filled my sack properly, not half-stolen handfuls, but decent forkfuls. Then he went to his smokehouse, came back with a slab of venison wrapped in cloth. Set it on top of the hay. I stared at him. He stared back. "Mr. Brenner, I can't—" He picked up the sack, handed it to me. Heavy enough, I nearly dropped it. Then he walked me to the creek boundary, his boots crunching through snow beside mine. At the property line, he stopped. I waited for him to say something. Waited for the price, the condition, the thing men always wanted when they help women alone. He just stood there. Then he turned and walked back to his barn. a dark shape disappearing into darker night. I ran home with the sack, my heart hammering, set it inside the door. Mama was asleep, or pretending to be. I unpacked the venison, the hay, and found one more thing at the bottom. A small wooden carving. A horse simple but careful, child-sized. That night, Mama woke fevered. She grabbed my hand, her fingers hot and papery. "Thomas," she whispered, "Thomas, we're at 172 days. Just 8 more. Just 8, and they can't take it." "I'm not Papa," I said gently. "I'm Stella." But she wasn't hearing me. Her eyes looked past my face to some other time. 8 days, Thomas. Promise me. Promise me our baby girl keeps the land." "I promise, Mama." She fell back asleep. I sat on the floor beside her bed, the wooden horse in my palm. Outside, Josiah Brenner's cattle lowed across the frozen creek. The sound carried like a lullaby, like maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. But come morning, everything changed. Sunday came cold and bright. Mama insisted on church, despite the cough that left bloody spots on her handkerchief. "Won't have folks saying we're heathens," she whispered, though dressing her took 20 minutes and left her gasping. I hitched our bony mare to the wagon. The leather reins were stiff with frost. My breath and the horses made twin clouds in the morning air. Helena Springs came into view, a scatter of false front buildings, mud streets frozen into ruts, the white church standing like a tooth against the gray sky. Wagons crowded the yard, families in their Sunday clothes, clean and proper, smelling like lye soap and respectability. We smelled like sickness and poverty. Reverend Oakes preached about bearing false witness. His voice rolled through the sanctuary, hitting the rafters and coming back down heavy with meaning. "The Lord sees all deception," he said. "He knows the difference between honest men and those who cloak their greed in legal language." I watched Edgar Haskell in the front pew. He sat straight-backed, a Bible in his lap, nodding along like the Reverend spoke gospel truth meant for others. His wife Violet sat beside him, her hands folded, her face pale. Edgar caught me looking, smiled. After the service, folks gathered on the church steps. The smell of horses and cold dirt mixed with perfume and pipe tobacco. Mrs. Peabody held court near the bottom step, her voice carrying like a bell. Edgar found me there. Mama had sat down on a bench, too tired to stand. I was alone. "Miss Pritchard," Edgar said, loud enough for the gathering crowd. "Might I have a word?" I didn't want to give him one, but saying no in public meant disrespect. Folks were already watching. "I've been thinking about your mother's situation." He pulled out a leather wallet, made a show of counting bills. "I'm a Christian man. I believe in charity, so I'm prepared to offer $50 for your claim before it lapses." $50. The land was worth $800, maybe more, with the timber and creek access. "It's a generous offer," Mrs. Peabody murmured. Several heads nodded. "No thank you, sir," I said. Edgar's smile thinned. "Child, your mother has 8 days to complete her residency requirement. She can barely stand. And you—" He looked me up and down like I was livestock. "You'll need a guardian when she passes. The county orphanage in Deer Lodge has room, unless you'd rather accept help from a neighbor." The threat sat there like a snake in the grass. "We'll make our days," I said. "Oh, will you?" He leaned closer. The pomade smell was thick, oily. "Because if your mother can't prove continuous residence, if she's absent even one night for, say, medical care, the claim becomes void, and Marshall Crenshaw takes failure to meet homestead requirements very seriously." Reverend Oakes had gone quiet. So had most of the crowd. They looked away, at their shoes, at the sky, anywhere but at me. Edgar patted my head like I was a dog. "Think about it, dear. Clock's ticking." He walked away, greeting folks by name, shaking hands, every inch the upstanding citizen. Mama was watching from her bench. She tried to stand, wobbled. I caught her arm. "Don't take his money," she whispered. "Promise me, Stella. Don't let him have our land." "I promise." But I didn't know how to keep it. Monday morning, I went to the land registry office. It sat in a brick building on the corner, the only brick in town. The marshal's office shared the same structure. Inside smelled like ink and wood polish and power. The clerk looked up from his ledger, annoyed at the interruption. "Help you?" "Yes, sir. My mother's homestead. She's at 172 days of the 180 required. She's ill. I'm wondering if there's any provision for extension when—" "No extensions." He didn't even check his books. "Law's the law. 180 days continuous residence. Miss one day claims void." "But she's dying, sir. Tuberculosis. She can't—" Then she should have thought of that before filing a claim. He went back to his ledger. Next. I stood there, heat rising in my face. My hands curled into fists. Behind me, a door opened. Marshal Crenshaw stepped out of his office, his badge catching lamplight. He was a thick man with a thick mustache and hands that looked like they enjoyed their work. Problem here? He asked. No, sir, the clerk said. Just explaining homestead law to the Pritchard girl. The marshal looked at me the way a butcher looks at a calf, calculating weight and value. Your mom is the consumptive widow out past Miller's Creek? Yes, sir. Shame about that. He didn't sound sorry. But rules are rules. Can't have folks abandoning claims halfway through. Wouldn't be fair to those waiting to file. I turned to leave. That's when I heard it. A voice from the back room, muffled but clear enough. Edgar Haskell's voice. 8 days, Crenshaw, then it's ours. Creek access and all. The marshal's office door was cracked open. Through the gap, I saw Edgar standing there, a map spread on the desk. Our land, outlined in red. Just make sure the girl don't cause trouble, Edgar said. If necessary, we can always question her fitness as a guardian for herself. County might need to intervene. Crenshaw laughed. Let her try something. I'll have her on the orphan train so fast. I backed away before they could see me. Stumbled down the steps, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Outside, I bent over, hands on my knees, trying to breathe. The frozen mud of the street stared back at me, rutted and hard. That's when I saw it, a piece of paper blown against the building foundation. I picked it up. Official land office document. Edgar Haskell's name, our parcel number, date, 8 days from now, status, pending. He'd already filed. He was just waiting for us to fail. The law wasn't going to save us. The law was his weapon, not our shield. I walked home through cold that cut like knives. The pending document burned in my coat pocket. By the time I reached our cabin, my fingers were numb, and my mind was spinning with impossible math. 8 days, a dying mother, a marshal who was bought, a law that served rich men. Mama was asleep. I added wood to the fire, watched sparks rise toward the chinking gaps. Outside, dusk was falling purple and cold. Then I heard it. Boots crunching through snow, steady, deliberate. I grabbed the poker from the fireplace, my heart racing. We were 2 miles from anywhere. Visitors after dark meant trouble. A knock, 3 times, patient. I cracked the door. Josiah Brenner stood on our porch, his hat in his hands. Behind him, the sky was going dark. His breath made clouds in the cold air. We stared at each other. I waited for him to speak. He didn't. Finally, Mr. Brenner? He gestured, follow me. Then he turned and started walking toward the creek. I looked back at Mama, still sleeping, her breathing rough but steady. I grabbed my coat and followed. The walk took 20 minutes. We didn't speak. The only sounds were our boots on snow and the wind through bare branches. The cold smelled like pine and coming night. Brenner's ranch opened before us. Barn, corral, a house twice the size of ours but still plain. Practical, a working place. He led me to the corral. 3 posts stood in the center, ropes coiled on each. He picked up a lasso, held it out to me. I took it. The hemp was rough, worn smooth in places from years of use. He gestured to the nearest post. Throw. I did. The loop fell short, landed in mud. He picked it up, handed it back. His face showed nothing, no judgment, no impatience. He mimed the motion, wrist flick, timing, release. I tried again, missed, again, missed, again. The loop caught the top of the post, slipped off. My hands were raw from the rope. My arms ached. Frustration built in my chest like steam in a kettle. Why are you doing this? I burst out. Why help me? He was quiet for a long moment. The wind rattled the corral fence. Somewhere a horse nickered softly. Had a daughter once. His voice came rough, like it wasn't used to being heard. Would be about your size. The words hung in the frozen air. What happened to her? He looked away, toward the creek. Drowned, 8 years back. Creek flooded. I was mending fence on the far side. Didn't hear her call. I'm sorry. He shrugged, but his jaw was tight. Ain't about sorry. Ain't about anything except what's in front of you right now. That rope, that post. You can hit it or you can quit. Either way, the posts don't care and neither do I. It should have sounded harsh. Instead, it sounded like the truest thing anyone had said to me in months. I threw again, caught the post solid. He nodded once. Good, now do it 40 more times. An hour later, my shoulders burned, and my hands bled through calluses I didn't know I had. But I could rope that post 9 times out of 10. Josiah filled a bucket with creek water, cold enough to sting, and I plunged my hands in. The shock took my breath. Pain means you're learning, he said. We walked back to his house. Inside smelled like wood smoke and coffee and leather oil. Simple furniture, clean, on the mantel, a small pair of boots, child-sized, preserved like a shrine. He poured coffee into a tin cup, handed it to me. It was strong and bitter and perfect. "Mr. Brenner," I said, "Edgar Haskell is trying to take our land. He's partnered with the marshal. I found papers. He's already filed, just waiting for Mama's claim to expire. 8 days." He listened without interrupting. "I don't know what to do. Mama can't leave the cabin or we lose the residency requirement. I can't fight him in court. I'm 11 and we got no money for lawyers. And even if we had money, the marshal's in his pocket." I pulled out the crumpled pending document. He studied it, his face unreadable. "Law's supposed to protect folks," I said, hating how my voice cracked. "But it don't, does it? Not folks like us." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "Law's just ink on paper. What matters is who's holding the pen and who's holding the witnesses." "We don't have witnesses. Everyone's afraid of Edgar." "Then we find folks who ain't afraid." He stood, went to a chest in the corner, pulled out a worn leather satchel. Inside, papers, deeds, correspondence. "Had my own trouble with Haskell 3 years back. Tried to claim my creek boundary, said I'd never filed proper riparian rights. Judge ruled in my favor, but only because I had 3 witnesses who'd seen me work the land from day one." "Where do I find witnesses?" "Already know one." He tapped the table. "Me. But you'll need more. Need folks with standing. Folks who keep records." "Records?" "Find someone who writes things down. Every transaction, every date, every name. Someone Haskell can't threaten because they got nothing he wants." An idea sparked. "The Chinese laundress, Ada Chen." "Why her?" "She does washing for half the town. Mama used to pay her. Ada marked everything with a red thread stitch so she'd know whose linens were whose. If she marks laundry, maybe she marks other things too." Josiah almost smiled. "Smart girl. Go talk to her." I left his ranch with hope fluttering in my chest like a bird in a too small cage. Dangerous hope, the kind that could break you if you let it. At our property line, I stopped, turned back. "Mr. Brenner, why'd you really help me tonight?" The wind carried his answer, "Because someone should." He walked back to his house, a shadow against lamplight. I watched until he went inside, then I ran home through the dark, clutching hope and rope burns in the knowledge that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't fighting alone anymore. But when I opened our cabin door, Mama was awake and coughing blood into her hands, and the hope flickered down to an ember again. Tuesday. I found Ada Chen's laundry behind the boarding house, a lean-to structure with steam rising through every gap, smelling like lye soap and hot water and honest work. Inside, the air was thick enough to drink. Clothes hung on lines like prayer flags. Ada stood over a cauldron, stirring with a paddle taller than her. She was small, maybe 40-something, with gray streaking her black hair and hands that never stopped moving. When she saw me, she nodded once. "Miss Pritchard, your mama's linens, not ready till Friday." "That's not why I'm here, ma'am." I pulled out Mama's nightgown from my sack. "See this stitch? The red thread?" She looked closer. "My mark. So I know whose is whose. Many white ladies all want same white gown. I must remember." "That's what I thought." "Ma'am, do you keep records? Of who pays you, when, how much?" Her eyes sharpened. "Why you ask?" "Because Edgar Haskell is trying to steal our land, and I need someone who writes things down, someone who remembers." Ada set down her paddle, wiped her hands on her apron. "Come." She led me to a back room, barely more than a closet, but inside, stacked on shelves, ledgers, dozens of them going back years, each page filled with neat columns in a hand that mixed English and Chinese characters. "I write everything," Ada said. "Who pay, who owe, who promise pay later but never do. 6 year I keep record." She pulled down a ledger from 1887. "See, Mr. Haskell, he pay me for his wife's dress. But also," she pointed to another column, "he pay Marshal Crenshaw 3 times that year. I do Marshal's washing too. I see money change hand. I write down." My heart hammered. "You have records of Edgar paying the Marshal?" "Many record. Not just him. 7 times in 6 year, people lose their land claim. Always same. Marshal say they break rule. Always same. Mr. Haskell file new claim week later. I watch. I write." Her face hardened. "My husband lose our first claim, 1883. different town, same trick. Lawman and landman together, so now I write everything. Maybe someday someone need proof. I need proof now. I need it in 7 days. Ada studied me. You very small to fight big men. I know, but I got to try. She nodded slowly. Okay, I help, but you need more than me. Chinese woman testimony. Some judge not believe. You need white person with respect. Reverend Oakes? Maybe, but Reverend, he have mortgage from Mr. Haskell on his church. He afraid to speak. My hope guttered. Then who? I not know yet, but we find. Justice is, she searched for the word. Slow ox. Heavy. But it come. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid on the floor beside Mama's bed, listening to her breathe. Each inhale sounded wet, each exhale rattled. In my head, I counted. Day 173 of 180, 7 days left. Around 3 in the morning, I heard it. Horses outside, multiple horses, moving slow, quiet. I crept to the window. 4 shapes in the darkness. They stopped at our fence line, just watching, waiting. One struck a match to light a cigarette. In the flare, I saw Edgar Haskell's face. They stayed there for an hour, then left. In the morning, I found boot prints circling our entire cabin. Edgar was letting me know he could reach us whenever he wanted. Wednesday, I went to the land office to check something. The clerk was out. I slipped behind his counter, hands shaking, knowing I could be arrested, and pulled the file for our parcel. Inside, our original filing, Mama's signature, the residency affidavit, but beneath it, another document, same form, different handwriting. It claimed Mama had abandoned the property March 10th, 15, 5 days, enough to break the 180-day requirement. I stared at it. The dates were impossible. Mama had been bedridden all March. Doc Tillman had visited March 12. I had the camphor bottle he'd left dated in his own hand. The signature on the false affidavit looked like Mama's, but the letters were too perfect, too even, like someone had traced them, forged. I slipped the document into my coat and ran. I went straight to the marshal's office. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, but I made myself climb those steps. Marshal Crenshaw sat behind his desk, boots propped up, reading a newspaper. He glanced at me over the top. Help you? Yes, sir. I pulled out the forged affidavit. Someone filed a false claim against my mother's homestead. This says she abandoned our property in March. She didn't. She was sick in bed. Doc Tillman can testify to that. He took the paper, studied it. His face showed nothing. That's a serious accusation, Miss Pritchard. It's a serious crime, sir. Forgery. Someone copied my mama's signature. You sure about that? He leaned back. Maybe your mama forgot. Sick folks sometimes don't remember their movements. She was bedridden, sir. She couldn't have... Or maybe... His voice dropped, cold. You forged this yourself, trying to frame an upstanding citizen. The room tilted. What? You're 11 years old, desperate, facing orphanhood. Maybe you thought you could create a problem, then solve it, make yourself look like a victim. He stood. That's a crime too. False testimony, filing fraudulent documents. You know that's not true. Do I? All I know is you're in my office accusing Edgar Haskell of crimes with no proof. Just a paper that could have come from anywhere. Could have been written by you. Ada Chin has records. The Chinese laundress? He laughed. Her testimony's worth spit in a windstorm. No court'll take her word over a white man's. I backed toward the door. You're protecting him. I'm protecting the law. He sat back down. Now get out of my office before I decide you're more trouble than you're worth. And Miss Pritchard, if you value your freedom, you'll stop these accusations. County's got a nice orphanage in Deer Lodge. I'd hate to see you end up there, without your mama to visit. I ran. Down the steps, through the street, past the church, out toward the edge of town where the buildings gave way to prairie. I ran until my lungs burned, and my legs gave out. I collapsed in the dead grass, lay there staring at the sky, the forged document clutched in my fist. They'd thought of everything. The law wasn't just failing me. The law was Edgar's weapon, and he was about to use it to cut me and Mama down to nothing. 7 days left. No marshal. No witnesses anyone would believe. No hope. That's when I heard the wagon. Josiah Brenner pulls up beside me. Didn't say a word, just gestured to the seat. I climbed up. We rode in silence for a mile. Then he spoke. You went to the marshal. How'd you know? Your face. I told him everything. The forged document, the marshal's threats, Ada's ledgers that no court would accept. So what do I do? My voice cracked. How do I fight this? He was quiet for a long time. The wagon creaked. His horse's hooves hit frozen ground like a slow drum. Finally, you stop fighting their way. Start fighting yours. What's my way? Show me the forgery. I handed it over. He studied it while driving, his eyes narrow. Handwriting's too perfect, he said. Your mama signs her name with a flourish on the M. This one's flat. Someone traced it. That's what I thought. But who'll believe? Someone will. But first, we need the original documents, the real ones, and we need them before day 180. How? He looked at me straight on. You willing to break another law to stop a bigger crime? I thought of Mama coughing blood, of Edgar's smile, of 7 days slipping away like water through fingers. Yes, sir, I am. Good. He snapped the reins. Then tonight, we're going back to that land office, and we're taking everything Edgar Haskell doesn't want us to see. The sun was setting behind us, and ahead the road went dark. We waited till 2 in the morning. Josiah brought tools, a pry bar, a dark lantern, gloves. He moved like a man who'd thought about this carefully, which should have scared me, but instead made me feel safer. The land office sat dark and empty. Helena Springs was asleep. Even the saloon had gone quiet. The only sound was wind scraping down the empty street, carrying the smell of cold dirt and horse manure. Window on the east side, Josiah whispered. Clerk never locks it proper. Saw him close it last week. Latch didn't catch. We crept around back. Sure enough, the window slid open with barely a creak. Josiah boosted me through first. I was smaller, quieter. I landed on the wood floor, my heart hammering so loud I was sure someone would hear it 3 streets over. Josiah climbed through after me. We stood in the darkness, letting our eyes adjust. The office smelled like ink and dust and secrets. He uncovered the dark lantern just enough to give us a thin beam of light. Filing cabinets, back wall. We found the drawer marked P. I flipped through folders, my hands shaking. Pritchard, there. Inside, everything. The original homestead application. Mama's genuine residency affidavits, all signed in her real handwriting, the flourished M, the slanted G in Pritchard, dated correctly, witnessed by Doc Tillman, and beneath them, 3 more forged documents, all claiming abandonment, all dated differently, like Edgar had been preparing multiple angles of attack, each one a careful copy of Mama's signature, good enough to fool someone who didn't look close. He's done this before, I whispered. Check for other files, other homesteaders. I pulled files at random. Morrison, Chen, Williams, Fletcher, O'Brien. Every single one had similar forged documents, claims of abandonment, signatures that looked right but weren't, and notes in the margins in handwriting I recognized from the marshal's office. Claim void. New filing, Edgar Haskell, 7 families, 7 stolen homesteads, all in the past 5 years. Sweet mercy, Josiah breathed. We taking these, I asked. No, they'll know we were here. We document them. He pulled out paper and pencil from his coat. I'll copy the dates and details. You keep watch. I crouched by the window while he worked, his pencil scratching quietly in the darkness. Outside, nothing moved. The moon was a thin slice, barely giving light. The cold seeped through the glass. Then, footsteps. I grabbed Josiah's arm. He covered the lantern instantly. We froze. The footsteps passed by outside. A drunk stumbling home, singing off-key. He moved on. We breathed again. Josiah finished copying. Got it. Let's go. We climbed back through the window. I pulled it shut behind us, careful to leave the latch exactly how we'd found it. Half caught, like the clerk's laziness had left it. We were 2 blocks away when Josiah stopped, turned back to look at the office building. What? I asked. Just making sure we weren't followed. The street was empty, silent, but something in his posture stayed tense, alert. Mr. Brenner, if we show these notes to a judge, will it be enough? Depends on the judge. Depends if we can get witnesses to corroborate. He started walking again, but it's more than we had yesterday. He drove me home as dawn turned the sky gray. At our property line, he stopped the wagon. Day 174 now, he said. 6 days left. You got to keep your mama inside that cabin no matter what. They'll try to provoke her into leaving, fire, threats, anything to break residency. I know. And Miss Pritchard? He looked at me direct. What we did tonight, that's breaking and entering. They catch us, we go to jail, and Edgar wins automatic. You understand? Yes, sir. You scared? Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you smart. Just don't let it keep you still. I climbed down, started toward our cabin, then turned back. Mr. Brenner? Earlier you said I needed to fight my way, not their way. What's my way? He thought about that. Their way is ink on paper in dark offices. Your way is witnesses in daylight. He pulled something from his pocket, a small leather pouch. Been meaning to show you this. Inside the pouch, a branding iron stamp, small, portable, 2 letters, connected by a curved line, JB. That's my brand, he said. Stands for Josiah Brenner, but it also stands for something else. When you mark something, world knows it's yours. Can't be stole without everyone seeing. He handed me the pouch. You think about that. Think about what mark you want to put on your future. And when you're ready, we'll make sure everyone sees it. I didn't understand yet, but I took the pouch and held it like a promise. Inside the cabin, Mama was awake, sitting up in bed, which was rare. Her face looked gray in the weak dawn light, but her eyes were clear. Where you been? She asked. Helping Mr. Brenner with his cattle. The lie came smooth. I was getting good at lying. It made me feel sick and strong at the same time. That man's been good to us. Yes, ma'am. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Stella, if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen. If it does, you listen. Don't let them take you to some orphanage. You go to Reverend Oakes. You tell him I said to find you a good family. Promise me. I knelt beside her bed, took her hot, papery hand. I promise, Mama, but it won't come to that. She smiled, sad, knowing. You're a terrible liar, baby. Outside, the sun broke over the horizon. 6 days left, and somewhere out there, Edgar Haskell was already planning his next move. Thursday morning, I went to the general store for cornmeal. We were down to our last $2.30. I counted it 3 times before I left the cabin, made sure every penny was there. The store smelled like coffee and pickles and sawdust. Mr. Tanner ran the place, a nervous man who owed Edgar money like everyone else. I was measuring cornmeal when I heard them. Mrs. Peabody and 2 other church ladies, voices loud enough to carry. Living alone with that rancher, Mrs. Peabody said. Child her age. It ain't proper. I heard she's there till all hours, another woman added. Martha Simmons saw her leaving his property after dark Tuesday night. Poor motherless thing. Someone ought to speak to the Reverend. Girl needs supervision before she comes to ruin. My hands froze on the cornmeal scoop. Heat flooded my face. Maybe she's just helping with chores, the third woman said, but her voice was uncertain. Chores? Mrs. Peabody snorted. That's what they all say at first. Mark my words. That child'll end up in a family way before she's 12. And then what? Edgar Haskell's offered to take responsibility for her, put her in a proper home in Denver with his sister. But oh no, she'd rather run wild with... I dropped the scoop. It clattered on the wood floor loud enough to stop their talking. They turned, saw me. Mrs. Peabody had the decency to look embarrassed for half a second. Then her face hardened into righteous certainty. Well, she said, speak of the devil. I wanted to scream at her, wanted to tell her what Edgar really wanted, what he was really doing, but my throat was too tight and my eyes were burning, and I was 11 years old standing in a general store while grown women destroyed my reputation with smiles on their faces. I left the cornmeal, walked out with my $2.30 still in my pocket. Behind me, Mrs. Peabody's voice carried through the open door. See? Guilty conscience. That child needs saving from herself. I ran to Josiah's ranch, found him mending fence by the creek. When he saw my face, he set down his tools. They're saying things. I choked out. About me. About us. Mrs. Peabody told everyone I couldn't even say the words. His jaw tightened. What exactly did she say? I told him. Every vile insinuation, every poisonous whisper. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I'll go to town, he said finally. Set the record straight. It won't matter. They want to believe it. Edgar's spreading it because if I'm ruined, nobody will listen when I accuse him of fraud. Then what do you want to do? I don't know. The words burst out of me. I don't know how to fight this. Every time I find a way forward, they cut it off. The law's against us, the town's against us, and now they're making me into something dirty, so nobody will care when Edgar takes everything. I sat down hard in the frozen grass, put my head in my hands. Josiah lowered himself down beside me. Didn't touch me, didn't speak, just sat there while I cried. The wind rattled through bare branches. The creek burbled under its skin of ice. A crow called somewhere distant. When I finally stopped, he said, "You give up?" I don't know how not to. Then let me tell you something. His voice was rough. 8 years ago, my daughter drowned in that creek. My wife blamed me, said I chose work over watching our child. She left, took everything but the blame, and that she left with me. He stared at the water. I thought about dying for 2 years. Thought about it every morning when I woke up and remembered what I'd lost. You know what stopped me? I shook my head. Spite. He looked at me. Pure, stubborn spite. The world wanted me to give up, wanted me to sell this land and disappear. And I thought, no, I won't give them that satisfaction. I'll stay, I'll work, I'll keep breathing just to prove I can. That's not the same. It's exactly the same. Edgar Haskell wants you to give up, wants you to fold, wants you broken so bad you'll take his $50 in his charity and count yourself lucky. You gonna give him that? No. Then get up. I got up. Now listen, they're attacking your reputation because they can't attack your claim. That means we're close to something, means they're scared. He brushed dirt off his pants. We need one more thing, one more witness they can't dismiss, someone whose word carries weight even Edgar can't outweigh. Who? His wife. I stared at him. Violet Haskell? She'd never testify against her own husband. You sure about that? Woman who goes to church every Sunday and sits there while her husband steals land from widows and orphans? That's a heavy burden for a conscience. Heavy enough to crack, given the right pressure. How do we pressure her? We don't. We give her permission. He started walking toward his barn. Come on, we're going to pay Mrs. Haskell a visit. The Haskell house sat on the good side of town, 2 stories, painted white, with a fence and a garden gone dormant for winter. Curtains in every window, respectability made wood and nails. We knocked. A maid answered, took one look at us, and tried to close the door. Josiah's boot stopped it. Tell Mrs. Haskell we need 5 minutes. About her husband's land dealings. The maid looked uncertain. Then a voice from inside. Let them in, Mary. Violet Haskell stood in the hallway. She was 40 maybe, with graying blonde hair and a thin frame like she'd been beautiful once and was slowly giving it up. Her hands were folded in front of her. I noticed ink stains on her fingers. Mr. Brenner, Miss Pritchard. Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. I wondered when someone would come. Ma'am, we need to talk about... I started. I know what you need to talk about. She glanced at the maid. Mary, take an hour. Go visit your sister. When the maid left, Violet led us to the parlor. It smelled like furniture polish and old flowers. Everything was perfect. Everything was cold. She sat. We didn't. 7 homesteads, Violet said quietly. I've watched him steal 7 homesteads in 6 years. I've listened to him and Marshall Crenshaw plan it over brandy in this very room. I've kept quiet because I'm a coward, and because leaving him means leaving everything I've known for 20 years. She looked at her ink-stained hands. But I've also been copying his documents, every forged signature, every false affidavit, every piece of correspondence with the marshal. I have a trunk full of evidence in the attic. My heart stopped. Why? Because someone had to remember. Her eyes met mine. Because maybe someday I'd be brave enough to use it. Is that day today, Miss Pritchard? Yes, ma'am. Will you testify? Josiah asked. She was quiet for a long time. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere a shutter banged. If I testify, he'll destroy me. Divorce, scandal. I'll lose this house, my place in society, everything. Yes, ma'am, I said. But you'll be able to sleep at night. Violet Haskell laughed, sharp, bitter. Then she stood. Wait here. She climbed the stairs. We heard footsteps above us, the scrape of something heavy being moved. She came back carrying a small leather trunk. She set it on the parlor floor, opened it. Inside, papers, dozens of them, all in Edgar's handwriting, all damning. There's your evidence, she said. Every crime dated and documented. I'll testify to where I got them and what I witnessed, but you need to move fast. Circuit judge arrives in 3 days. My husband will know I've betrayed him the moment you file these with the court. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. She closed the trunk. He'll come for all of us, and Edgar doesn't lose gracefully. We carried the trunk to Josiah's ranch. Ada Chen met us there, her ledgers wrapped in oilcloth. Reverend Oakes came too, nervous but determined. We spread everything across Josiah's kitchen table. 6 years of evidence laid out like a map of Edgar Haskell's greed. This is enough, Ada said, running her finger down her ledger columns. Judge must see, cannot ignore. Judge Thompson arrived Saturday, Reverend Oakes said. Court convenes Monday morning. We file the complaint Sunday after service. Get it on the docket first thing. That's day 179, I said. One day before Mama's claim expires. Cutting it close, Josiah muttered. But it'll work. I wanted to believe him, but something cold had settled in my stomach. What about Mama? Edgar knows we're moving against him. What if he comes for her before the hearing? Nobody answered. Friday morning, Doc Tillman came to check on Mama. I heard his wagon before I saw it, the wheels squeaking, the horse laboring in the mud. Spring thaw had started. The frozen ground was turning soft. He examined Mama for a long time, longer than usual. His face was grave when he finally stood. Miss Pritchard, might I speak with you outside? The air smelled like wet earth and coming rain. The sky was gray, heavy with weather that couldn't decide if it was winter or spring. Your mother's declining faster than I anticipated, Doc said. The fever's constant now. Her lungs are filling with fluid. I'd say she has 2 weeks, maybe 3 if she stays very still and very warm. 2 weeks, less than the time it would take to fight Edgar in court, even if we won. Is there anything? No, he said it gently. I'm sorry. There's nothing more I can do except make her comfortable. You should... He paused. You should prepare yourself, child. After he left, I sat on the porch step. The wooden horse Josiah had carved that first night was in my pocket. I turned it over and over in my hands. Inside, Mama called for me. Her voice was weak. I went to her bedside. She was propped up on every pillow we owned, her breathing shallow and quick. Her skin looked gray against the white linen. Stella? She took my hand. Hers was burning hot. I need you to do something for me. Anything, Mama. I need you to promise you'll be all right. After. You're going to be fine. Don't. Her grip tightened with surprising strength. Don't lie to me. I'm dying. We both know it. And I need to know you'll survive what's coming. Tears blurred my vision. I can't do this without you. Yes, you can. You've been doing it for months already. She coughed, wet, rattling. When she caught her breath, Mr. Brenner, he's a good man. He'll take care of you if you let him. Mama, I'm signing papers. Legal guardianship, transferring to Josiah Brenner. She pulled a document from under her pillow. Doc Tillman must have brought it. I already signed. Just needs witnessing. No. The word came out harsh. I won't let you give me away. I'm not giving you away. I'm giving you a future. Tears ran down her temples into her hair. The land, our claim, it'll transfer through him as your guardian. Edgar can't touch it if you're under Brenner's protection. Do you understand? This is the only way I can keep you safe after I'm gone. There has to be another way. There isn't, baby, and we're out of time. She pressed the paper into my hand. Take this to the Reverend. Have him witness it. File it with the court before Monday. Promise me. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The paper in my hand felt like betrayal and salvation all at once. Promise me, Stella Mae Pritchard. I promise. She sagged back into the pillows, exhausted. Good girl. Now go. Don't waste time on an old woman's dying. Go fight. I kissed her forehead. It burned my lips. Outside, the rain started. Cold drops that smelled like iron and earth. I stood in it until I was soaked through, the guardianship paper clutched against my chest. I walked to town, through mud that sucked at my boots, found Reverend Oakes at the church, sweeping the steps. He looked at me, soaked, shaking, holding the paper like a lifeline, and said nothing, just led me inside. The church smelled like old wood and candle wax and prayers that had soaked into the walls over years. We sat in a pew. I handed him the paper. He read it, signed as witness. His hand shook slightly, making the signature waver. Your mother's a brave woman, he said. She's dying. I know. I'll pray for her. Will praying help? He was quiet. No, probably not. But I'll do it anyway because that's all I have to offer. What if Edgar contests the guardianship, says it's not legal? He might try, but your mother's of sound mind. Doc's examination confirms she understands what she's signing, and I'm a witness of standing. It'll hold. He folded the paper carefully. I'll file this tomorrow with the court clerk. Judge Thompson will see it Monday morning alongside our fraud complaint. You're really going to testify? Even though Edgar holds your church mortgage? Yes. Why? He looked at the altar, at the cross hanging there. Because I've been silent too long. Because every Sunday I preach about standing up to injustice, and then I go home and do nothing. Because you're 11 years old, and you've got more courage than I've shown in 60 years of living. He turned to me. And because someone has to say enough. Might as well be me. That evening, Josiah came to the cabin. I met him on the porch, handed him the guardianship paper. He read it slowly. You sure about this? Mama's sure. That's what matters. I'll take care of you. You know that. I know. My throat was tight. Mr. Brenner, what happens Monday? If we win? You keep the land. Edgar faces fraud charges. Marshall loses his badge. Everyone he stole from gets their claims back. And if we lose? He folded the paper, put it in his coat pocket. Then you come live with me anyway. The land might be gone, but you won't be alone. That's not legal adoption. Don't care much about legal right now. Care about right. He looked toward the cabin where Mama lay dying. How is she? Fading. We stood in silence. The rain had stopped, but everything dripped. The world smelled new and raw, like something being born or something dying, maybe both. There's one more thing we need to do, Josiah said, before Monday. Something that'll make sure everyone knows whose side they're on. What? A branding. He pulled the small iron stamp from his pocket. Not on cattle, on paper, public declaration of who you belong to. I'm going to have the blacksmith forge a proper brand, SB connected, Stella Brenner. Then Monday, after the judge rules, we'll hold a ceremony. Let the whole town see you take my name. I thought you didn't care about legal. I don't, but symbols matter, marks matter. When a thing is branded, people know it's claimed. Can't be stole without everyone seeing the theft. He pressed the stamp into my hand. You hold on to this. Think about what mark you want to leave on the world. I closed my fingers around it. The metal was cold and solid and real. Mr. Brenner, what if Mama doesn't make it to Monday? Then we'll make sure she knows you're safe before she goes. That's all any parent wants. Inside the cabin, Mama was sleeping. I sat beside her bed, listening to her breathe. Each breath seemed harder than the last. Each pause between breaths stretched longer. I took out the wooden horse he'd carved that first night, set it on the table beside her medicine bottles, a reminder that kindness still existed, that someone had seen me when everyone else looked away. Outside, spring rain returned. Soft this time, the kind that wakes up seeds. Day 176, 4 days left. And somewhere in town, Edgar Haskell was planning his final move. Saturday morning, day 177, 3 days left. I woke to horses outside. Multiple horses moving fast. My heart jumped into my throat. I grabbed Father's old rifle from above the door. It hadn't been loaded in 2 years. We couldn't afford ammunition, but Edgar didn't need to know that. Through the window, Edgar, Marshall Crenshaw, and 2 hired men I didn't recognize. Big men with guns on their hips. Behind them, a wagon. Edgar dismounted. Walked to our door like he owned the place already. His knock rattled the frame. Mrs. Pritchard, Marshall's business. Open up. I barred the door with the chair. Go away. Miss Pritchard, this is Marshall Crenshaw. I have a court order for the immediate committal of Margaret Pritchard to Deer Lodge Sanitarium for treatment of infectious disease. Open this door or I'll break it down. You're lying. There's no judge here yet. You can't have an order. Emergency order. Telegraph from the Territorial Health Officer. Your mother's tuberculosis poses a public health risk. She's to be removed immediately for quarantine. Mama stirred in her bed. Stella? What's happening? Nothing, Mama. Stay still. Edgar's voice came smooth through the door. Miss Pritchard, be reasonable. Your mother needs professional care. We're doing this for her benefit, for everyone's benefit. If she leaves, she breaks residency. That's what you want. The law's the law, child. Can't have sick folks endangering the community. I could hear the smile in his voice. Now open up, or we'll have to charge you with obstruction. I cocked the rifle. The sound carried. Outside, the horses shifted nervously. You touch this door, I'll shoot. With what? Marshall Crenshaw laughed. Everyone knows your daddy's rifle ain't been loaded since he died. You're bluffing. He was right, but I held the rifle steady anyway, pointed at the door. Try me. The door shuddered. They were going to break it down. I could see the wood splitting around the hinges. One more hit, and step away from that cabin. A new voice, quiet, carrying like iron on winter air, Josiah Brenner. I looked through the window. He stood at our fence line, his own rifle raised. And behind him, I nearly dropped my gun. Behind him stood a dozen people. Ada Chin with a broomstick, Reverend Oakes with his Bible, the blacksmith with his hammer, even old Mrs. Chin from the laundry, barely 5 feet tall, holding a cleaver. This is none of your concern, Brenner, Edgar said. Everything about that child is my concern. I'm her legal guardian as of yesterday. Papers filed with the county clerk. Judge Thompson will confirm it Monday. Till then, she's under my protection. You got no authority. I got 12 witnesses and the truth. Josiah stepped forward. You want to take Mrs. Pritchard, you'll have to go through all of us. And explain to Judge Thompson on Monday why you needed to break down a dying woman's door on a Saturday morning with a fake health order. Marshal Crenshaw's hand moved toward his gun. The blacksmith raised his hammer. Ada Chin stepped forward, cleaver glinting. The two hired men looked at each other, at the crowd, at their odds. They backed up their horses slowly. This ain't over, Edgar said. His face was red, his voice shaking. Monday morning, I'll have that judge void every fraudulent claim you people are trying to make. And then, Miss Pritchard, you'll find yourself on the orphan train so fast? No, she won't. Another voice, female, shaking but clear. Violet Haskell stepped out from behind Josiah's group. She wore a simple traveling dress, carried a carpet bag. Her hair was pinned up but coming loose. She looked terrified and free at the same time. Violet? Edgar stared. What are you? I'm leaving you, Edgar. And I'm testifying against you Monday morning about the Morrison claim and the Chen family and the O'Briens and every other homestead you've stolen over 6 years. Her voice got stronger with each word. I've been documenting your crimes for a year. Every forged signature, every bribe to the marshal, every piece of correspondence. I have it all. Edgar went pale. You wouldn't dare. I already did. It's with the court clerk. Reverend Oakes filed it an hour ago. She looked at me. She looked. I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner, Miss Pritchard, but I'm doing it now. Edgar's composure cracked. You stupid woman. Do you know what you've done? That's spousal testimony. It's not admissible. No court will. It ain't just her testimony. Ada Chin stepped forward. I have ledger, 6 years. Every dollar you pay Marshall, every claim that disappear. I testify too. And I'll testify about the forged documents, Josiah said. The ones we found in the land office. The ones that match your handwriting, Edgar. That's breaking and entering. Is it? Reverend Oakes held up a paper. Or did the county clerk grant Mr. Brenner access to review public homestead records? Because I have the authorization right here, signed yesterday. I didn't know if that was true or if the Reverend was bluffing, but Edgar's face said he believed it. The marshal shifted. Edgar, maybe we should... Shut up. Edgar's hands were shaking. This is conspiracy. I'll have all of you arrested. You'll what? Josiah's voice cut like a knife. Go ahead. Arrest 12 witnesses. See how that plays Monday morning when Judge Thompson asks why you needed to silence everyone who could testify against you. The hired men were already leaving. Their horses trotted back toward town, the men not looking back. Marshal Crenshaw looked at Edgar, at the crowd, at his future evaporating. I ain't going to jail for you, Haskell. He turned his horse. Monday morning, I'll tell the judge everything. You coward. But the marshal was already riding away. Edgar sat alone on his horse, surrounded by people he'd bullied and bought and controlled for years, all of them standing against him now, all of them unafraid. This town is mine, he said quietly. You can't... Town ain't yours anymore, Ada said. People are. And people we remember. Edgar stared at her, at Violet, at all of us. Then he yanked his horse's reins and galloped away, mud spraying from the hooves. The crowd came to our porch. Josiah checked the door. The frame was cracked but holding. The blacksmith said he'd fix it within the hour. I set down the rifle. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. Thank you, I whispered. All of you. Don't thank us yet, Reverend Oakes said. Monday's when it counts. Edgar's got money for lawyers. He'll fight. Let him fight, Josiah said. He looked at me. We've got something better than lawyers. What's that? The truth, in a town that's finally willing to hear it. Inside, Mama called weakly. I went to her. The crowd stayed outside, giving us privacy. She was awake, lucid. Did I hear right? Is it over? Not yet, but we're close, Mama. Monday we go to court. Will you win? I took her hand. I don't know, but we're going to try. She smiled. Your father would be proud. Fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. That's what he taught me. That's what I hope I taught you. You did. Good. She closed her eyes. Then I can rest. Sunday morning, Judge Thompson arrived on the noon stage. Word spread through town like fire. Court would convene Monday at 9 o'clock sharp. That evening, Josiah took me to the blacksmith's forge. The smith was waiting, hammer in hand, on his anvil a branding iron, fresh forged, still warm, 2 letters connected by a curved line, S.B. Stella Brenner. "After the judge rules," Josiah said, "after it's official, we'll hold a ceremony, public. Let everyone see you take my name. Let everyone see you're claimed and protected. What if we lose? We won't, but if we do, I'm adopting you anyway, legal or not. You're mine now. Family ain't just paper." I touched the brand. The metal was warm, solid, real. "When a thing is marked," Josiah said quietly, "world knows it's yours." I understood now. The brand wasn't about ownership. It was about belonging, about being seen, about standing in daylight and saying, "This is who I am. This is who chose me. You can't take that." Monday morning, day 180. I woke to birdsong, real birdsong, not the crows and ravens of winter, but meadowlarks. Spring had come while we were fighting. I dressed in my cleanest dress, still patched, still poor, but clean, braided my hair, looked at Mama. She was breathing, barely, but breathing. "I have to go to court now, Mama." Her eyes fluttered open. "Win or lose, baby, you already won. You stood up. That's what matters." "I love you." "I love you too. Now go. Show them what a Pritchard's made of." I kissed her forehead, walked out into the spring morning. Josiah waited with the wagon. Ada Chen, Reverend Oakes, Violet Haskell, the blacksmith, Doc Tillman, Mrs. Morrison whose husband had died and whose claim Edgar had tried to steal, Mr. Chin who'd lost his first homestead, all of them witnesses. We rode to town together as the sun rose golden over the prairie. The mud smelled like life, the air tasted like possibility. At the courthouse, Edgar Haskell waited with 2 lawyers from Helena. They looked expensive and certain. We looked poor and determined. Judge Thompson took a seat, banged his gavel. "Court's in session. First case, complaint of fraud in the matter of Pritchard homestead claim." Josiah stood, cleared his throat, and for the first time in 8 years of silence, he spoke in public. "Your Honor, my name is Josiah Brenner. I'm here to tell you about a man who stole 7 homesteads using forged documents and bribes. I'm here to tell you about a marshal who betrayed his oath, and I'm here to tell you about an 11-year-old girl who had more courage than all of us combined." He looked at me. "And I'm here to make sure she keeps her land." Judge Thompson leaned forward. "Then let's hear it." The trial lasted 4 hours. Ada Chin presented her ledgers. 6 years of payments from Edgar to Marshall Crenshaw, dated to match every stolen homestead. The judge examined each entry, his face growing darker with every page. Violet Haskell testified about watching her husband forge signatures at their dining room table, about finding practice sheets where he traced Margaret Pritchard's name until he could copy it perfectly, about 7 families destroyed while she stayed silent. "Why come forward now?" Judge Thompson asked. Violet looked at me. "Because that child had the courage I lacked, and I couldn't live with myself anymore." Reverend Oakes testified about the pattern, how every claim that failed went immediately to Edgar Haskell, how the marshal always ruled in Edgar's favor, how the town knew but stayed silent out of fear. Doc Tillman testified that Maggie Pritchard had been bedridden the entire month of March, making the forged abandonment affidavit impossible. When it was my turn, I stood. My legs shook. The courtroom smelled like old wood and tobacco and justice waiting to be served. "Tell me what happened, Miss Pritchard," Judge Thompson said gently. I told him everything. The creek ice mornings, Mama coughing blood, Edgar's threats, finding the forged documents, the marshal's corruption, the night we broke into the land office to copy evidence. Edgar's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, she just admitted to breaking and entering." "Sit down," Judge Thompson said coldly. "I want to hear this child finish." I told him about the dawn raid, about Josiah and the neighbors forming a wall, about Violet finding her courage, about Mama signing guardianship papers because she knew she was dying and wanted me protected. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. Judge Thompson looked at Edgar. "Mr. Haskell, you have anything to say for yourself?" Edgar stood. His face was composed, confident. "Your Honor, this is clearly a conspiracy by people who owe me money and want to avoid their debts. That child has been coached by Brenner, who has his own designs on that property. My wife is clearly having some sort of nervous episode." "Your wife provided 47 forged documents with your handwriting," the judge interrupted. "Miss Chen's ledgers show 6 years of illegal payments. Dr. Tillman's testimony proves your affidavit was false, and Marshal Crenshaw, who I've already stripped of his badge, has confessed to accepting bribes." Edgar's confidence cracked. "You can't. I can, and I will." Judge Thompson's gavel hit like thunder. I'm ruling the Pritchard claim valid. All 180 days of residency confirmed. Furthermore, I'm voiding every homestead claim you filed in the past 6 years. The Morrison, Chen, Williams, Fletcher, O'Brien, Davidson, and Miller families will have their land restored. The courtroom erupted. People were crying, hugging, shouting. Additionally, the judge continued, Edgar Haskell, you are hereby charged with fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Bail is set at $5,000. Trial date to be set. Marshal Crenshaw, you'll be charged separately. Edgar's face went white. His lawyers were already packing their bags. One more thing. Judge Thompson looked at me. The guardianship transfer from Margaret Pritchard to Josiah Brenner is confirmed. Miss Pritchard, you're legally under Mr. Brenner's protection. Your claim and your future are secure. We walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sunlight. The mud had dried to earth. The smell of spring was everywhere. Grass, possibility, life continuing. People surrounded us, thanked us, cried. The Morrison widow hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. Mr. Chen pressed a silver dollar into my hand. For courage, he said in halting English. You save all of us. Josiah put his hand on my shoulder. Ready? For what? The ceremony. Blacksmith's got the brand ready. Time to make it official. We rode to Josiah's ranch. Word had spread. By the time we arrived, 40 people had gathered at his corral. Someone had strung ribbons from the fence posts. Someone else had brought food. The blacksmith pulled the SB-connected brand from the forge. The metal glowed orange, beautiful and terrible. Josiah held it up for everyone to see. This brand's been in my family 20 years, stands for who I was, but today it stands for something more. It stands for family, not blood, but chosen. Stella Mae Pritchard, you willing to take my name? My throat was too tight to speak. I nodded. Then by the power vested in me by this community in the territory of Montana, I claim you as my daughter, Stella Brenner, and anyone who tries to take you answers to me and everyone here. He pressed the brand to a newborn calf's flank. The smell of burned hide and smoke rose into the clear sky. The calf bawled once, then quieted. There, Josiah said. Marked and witnessed. She's mine. We're family. The crowd cheered. Someone played a fiddle. People danced in the spring mud like it was the finest ballroom. Ada Chen gave me a package wrapped in cloth. Inside, a dress. Simple blue cotton with red thread stitching at the collar. Her mark. For new beginning, she said. I left the celebration early, rode home alone as the sun set. I needed to tell Mama. She was still breathing when I got there. Barely. Her eyes opened when I sat beside her bed. We won, I whispered. The judge ruled for us. The land's secure. Josiah is my legal guardian now. You don't have to worry anymore. She smiled. Tears ran down her temples. Good girl. Knew you could do it. Mama, I'm scared. I know, baby, but you're not alone. You got Josiah, you got Ada and the Reverend and all those people who stood up today. That's family. It's not the same as you. No, but it's enough. She reached for my hand. Her grip was weak. You're going to be fine, Stella Brenner. You're going to be better than fine. Her breathing slowed, became peaceful, like she'd been holding on just long enough to know I was safe. I love you, Mama. I love you too. Tell your father. Tell him I kept our promise. Our girl's got the land. She's got a future. Her hand went slack in mine. The meadowlarks sang outside. The spring wind whispered through new grass. And Margaret Pritchard, who'd fought with her last breath to give her daughter a chance, finally rested. 3 weeks later, we buried Mama at the creek boundary, the land Edgar had wanted for his railroad spur. Reverend Oakes spoke words about resurrection and spring and hope eternal. We planted wild roses on her grave. Josiah stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Ada brought flowers. Violet Haskell came, carrying a small stone she'd carved with Mama's name. She was braver than I was, Violet said quietly. She fought until the end. After everyone left, I stayed. The creek burbled, running full with snowmelt. The roses would bloom come summer, red and wild and untamable. Like Mama had been, like she'd taught me to be. Josiah waited by the wagon, giving me time. I pressed my hand to the earth above her grave. We did it, Mama. The land's ours, and I got a family now. Not the one we started with, but a good one, a real one. The wind carried my words away across the prairie. I walked back to Josiah. He helped me into the wagon. We rode toward his ranch, my ranch now too. The SB-connected brand hung above the barn door, catching the late afternoon light. Spring rain had turned the valley green, calves ran in the pasture, each bearing our mark. The garden had been planted, life continued, stubborn and beautiful and earned through struggle. "You all right?" Josiah asked. "Yes, sir, I am." "Good. Got work to do tomorrow. Fence needs mending on the North 40. I'll help." He almost smiled. "Reckon you will." We rode home together through the spring evening, and behind us the sun set golden over the land that was ours, marked, witnessed, and held by something stronger than paper, by family, by courage, by the truth that stood in daylight and refused to be moved.